So we're closing a series of activities, part of the Earth Holder retreat. And the title of the retreat is For the Future to be Possible. And in this book, at the beginning of the book, there is a poem. And in that poem is a poem by Machado, a Spaniard. And the poem goes like this in English. It says, "Wanderer, there is no path. You lay down the path in walking. In walking, you lay down the path. And when you look back, you see the road that you will never step on again. Wanderer, there is no path. There's only tracks in the ocean foam." And the song goes on saying, everything goes and everything remains, but our faith is to pass making a path as we go, paths over the sea. I never pursued glory or to live in the memory of man, this my song. I love subtle worlds, weightless and gentle, like soap bubbles. I like to see them paint themselves on sun and crimson, fly under the blue sky and suddenly break. I never pursued glory. Some time ago, in this place where now the woods dress the mountains, the voice of a poet was heard. Wanderer, there is no path. A path is made in walking, step by step, verse by verse. The poet died far from home, and his body is covered by dust from a neighboring country. As he went away, he could be heard crying, "Wanderer, there is no path. A path is made in walking." When the robin can no longer sing, when the poet is a pilgrim, when praying is of no more use, wanderer, there is no path. A path is made in walking, step by step, verse by verse.
Todo pasa y todo queda, pero lo nuestro es pasar, pasar haciendo caminos, caminos sobre la mar. Nunca perseguí la gloria, ni dejar en la memoria de los hombres mi canción. Yo amo los mundos sutiles, ingrávidos y gentiles, como pompas de jabón. Me gusta verlos pintarse de sol y gran alborar, bajo el cielo azul temblar, súbitamente y quebrarse. Nunca perseguí la gloria.
Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Al andar se hace el camino y al volver la vista atrás se ve la senda que nunca más has de volver a pisar. Caminante no hay camino, solo estelas en la mar. Hace algún tiempo en este lugar, donde hoy los bosques se visten de espinos, se oyó la voz de un poeta llorar. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar, paso a paso, verso a verso, paso a paso, verso a verso. Murió el poeta lejos del hogar, le cubre el polvo de un país vecino, y al alejarse le oyeron llorar. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar, paso a paso, verso a verso.
cuando el jilguero no puede cantar, cuando el poeta es un peregrino, cuando de nada nos sirve rezar. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar, verso a verso, golpe a golpe, paso a paso, verso a verso, paso a paso, verso a verso.
So good morning, dear Dario Sangha, dear friends. So welcome to our Earth Dharma panel this morning on May 1st. And so we have some friends with us that will share their experience and practice. We'll introduce them more in a moment. And so like I mentioned, it's the last day of our Earth Holder retreat, and the first day and a half we focused our attention on nourishing our togetherness and our happiness to arrive and to stop. And yesterday into holding and looking deeply into our difficulties and our suffering as individuals, as a collective, and as a planetary system. And today we're continuing as a wanderer, making the step, one step after the next, and making the path as we walk. And so 2 years ago we had an earth holding retreat here at Deer Park, or a weekend. And as we were sitting down afterwards sharing about it, a couple of kind of key points for me came that I feel like is kind of instrumental in using our practice of mindfulness, of stopping, calming, getting to know ourselves and taking good care of our body, our feelings, and our mind, together with building community and reconciling with our families, into reaching out in engaging the suffering that is going on in society and in the planetary scale. And so, coming from love, so our teacher encouraged us to fall in love with the earth, to recognize we are the earth. We are the earth walking on the earth, we are the earth breathing the earth. So coming from love and not fear and worry what's going to happen and we have to do something, and we're running around like, chicken, scared, running around and we don't know what we're doing. So when we can come back, we come from love, and already when we come back to ourselves, when we stop, we touch love in ourselves, we touch a sense of community and interbeing, we can already be much more whole and content. So in that sense, you can see is making the walk or path by walking. And that we do together, not looking for someone to blame or criticize, but together we can be the beautiful change we want to see in the world. And how can we be diligent, meaning that we don't have a feeling, yes, this is important, I want to do something, and then everyday life happens and it becomes like just something in the closet collecting dust in our hearts. But actually something that every day we find a way to remind ourselves about the preciousness of being in contact with the earth, being in contact with the joy of animals, plants and minerals and people, but also the suffering of animals, plants, minerals and people. And so how to not forget, so be diligent in an easygoing way, and aimless, meaning that we're not chasing after a goal. If I just do this and then this will be achieved and then we'll be okay. But really as we're offering our love, our action, coming back to our in-breath and out-breath, we do it in a way just because we enjoy doing it, just because we know we want to do it, we like to do it. So that's just kind of a couple of words to introduce the earth holding. And so I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists this morning. And so we'll start with Brother Jerome Freedman. is an OI Order of Interbeing member and a founding member of Earth Holder Sangha and the Buddhist Climate Action Network. He has trained in physics and computer science. Now he spent his time as an author, blogger, meditation teacher, and he's helping facilitate the Mindfulness in Healing Sangha in San Anselmo, California. He wrote a book which is called Healing Cancer with Your Mind, 7 Strategies to Help You Survive. So all the panelists this morning will share about 15 minutes or less. At 15 minutes, we'll get a kind little reminder from Sister Mahingim. And we have a couple of minutes to wrap up. If we continue for 3 minutes, we'll get a bigger sound. Okay, so on my right is Reverend Jayna Gieber. She's the director of People of the Heart, an inclusive spiritual community based on 4 acres of restored forest land in Washington State. Jayna is an Order of Interbeing member and Earth Holder member. She is also trained with Janna in deep time work, with Al Gore in climate science, and by South and North American indigenous teachers in earth-based shamanism. Jayna is devoting her life to being a hollow little bone, a leader with a small L, in service to our world. And on my far right is Kristin Barker from Washington, D.C. Kristen is the co-founder and director of One Earth Sangha. They also hosted the Eco-Sattva training last fall. And she practices in the Vipassana tradition. So we're very happy Kristen has been able to join us here for this retreat. And so we'd like to welcome our brothers and sisters on the panel this morning, knowing that there's much experience and much insight in our community. And so we're sorry that everyone cannot be represented and included, but we want to offer and listen as a community, and knowing and respecting the diversity and the multitudes of insights. And so let's maybe give them some flowers. They feel happy and comfortable being up here. Yeah. So between each sharing too, we'll have a sound of the bell, so we can come back to our breathing, just let the sharing sink in, and also giving our panelists a chance to breathe. And so my name is Brother Phap Ho, Brother Protection. I'll share a little bit at the end if we have time. And I live here at Deer Park Monastery.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I've already made one big faux pas. I left my brown robe in my cabin. So I don't think I could mess up any worse than that right now. I want to express my gratitude and the feeling of honor that I have for being able to speak with you today. It's a culmination of a lot of my work in mindfulness over the past 40 years. And I want to begin with a story that at first you won't think it has anything at all to do with climate change or with racial justice or with social justice. It's a story about a little boy. I tend to get emotional when I tell this story. I didn't think I would today, but it looks like it's happening. When my son was 7 years old, he was stricken with, in those days, called an incurable cancer of the kidney that had metastasized to his lungs. And this was a great shock to me because I was scheduled the day he went into the hospital to help facilitate a retreat at Esalen Institute with Gabriel Roth, who was one of my foundational teachers. So the story actually begins a few years earlier, in 1973. I happened into an occult bookstore in Evanston, Illinois, where I was teaching at the college in Oakton, Illinois. And there was this man there named Father Eli who was talking about the wisdom teachings of his shamanistic tradition from Scotland and Cree Indians. And I thought I was coming for a lecture on yoga. But the man's voice was so captivating and so interesting that I could not leave. And when he came back the next month, I was there. And month after month, I would return to see Father Eli and see what he had to say this week. So by the time May rolled around, he invited me to train with him on a 3-month retreat in the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas. And I consulted the I Ching, and the I Ching told me that perseverance furthers. The training I got there was very difficult to describe in words that are not dealt with in a practice situation. But the practice is something that relates directly to our mindfulness trainings, directly to our practice. And it has elements of our deep relaxation. And it has elements of imagery. And I will tell you in detail about these elements after I finish the story about my son, Micah. So I was trained by Father Eli, and I went back to Evanston to get my things and moved to California, where I had secured a job at the College of Marin for 1 academic year. So during that year, I was training hundreds of people to do this type of what I now call desire-based meditation. Now, if you were here yesterday, you learned that desire was definitely one of the 3 poisons that the Buddha talked about. But in this case, it's beneficial desire, because it's desire for a cause that benefits more people than it harms, and it harms no people at all when done correctly. It's yoniso manasikara. It's skillful means. So I trained many people doing this, and 3 years later, my son was stricken with cancer. The minute I learned about this, I had to cancel my trip to Esalen and get to the hospital. And when he came out of surgery, I began to train him to do what we called for children mind stories. And these mind stories are essentially the process I will teach you applied to a 7-year-old boy. And I've continued to call them mind stories for the last 40 years. So during the month-long stay in the hospital, I would alternate with my ex-wife taking care of Micah during the night. You know, just being in his room, being nearby, you know, being there if he woke up. And I would practice these mind stories with him, and I would do the mind stories myself. And the mind stories would involve imagery and desire to be well, to see the cancer gone, to see him fully recovered, to see him living the life of a young boy who was actually shown to be a gifted child a few years later. So without Father Eli, I don't think I would have had the mind stories to teach him. So this relates back to the talk yesterday as well, where causes and conditions give rise to things that happen in our lives. And causes and conditions determine our living experience. So when Micah got out of the hospital, I knew it was time to hire someone who had been trained in a similar process. If you've ever heard of the Symington method, we found a person who was trained by the Symingtons to do this kind of work with Micah. And so this person we found was Dr. Sheldon Ruderman, who himself was a cancer survivor. And so with Sheldon, Micah would have these guided imagery sessions, which we called mind stories. And one day, Dr. Ruderman asked him, if you keep listening to the doctor and doing these practices and doing what the doctors tell you, how long will it take you to get better? And Micah said, by the time I'm 8 years old, the cancer will be gone. The monster will be gone. He saw his cancer as a monster. And the way he did in his imagery was to fill the monster with gooey stuff. It's exactly what he called it, gooey stuff. And it would suffocate and shrivel up and die. So he was cured. When he was 11 years old, we took him for a checkup, and the surgeon said, You're Micah's dad? Do you know he made medical history? Up until that time, metastatic kidney cancer, called a Wilms tumor, was considered incurable. So at the age of 11, Micah was in a dilemma between singing with the boys' chorus and doing gymnastics. And he chose to sing with the boys' chorus of San Francisco. And that became his heart. His heart is in his music. And he's still living today. He got married on Halloween for the first time. And I'm happy to say that I'm really happy for him. Now, I want to tie this back to climate change. And the way I want to tie it back to climate change is to tell you what this process involves. It involves things like desire, appropriate attention to desire for an end result. It involves belief that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. It involves expectancy that the result will happen. It also involves gratitude and thankfulness and appreciation for the opportunity to tune into yourself and find the best way to the solution of a problem. It involves joy and loving kindness and equanimity in the sense of not being attached to the result. In my experience, the moment I knew he was in safe hands in the surgery room, I started calling around to find out how I was going to deal with this situation and get support from my community. And this is how I found Dr. Ruderman, was to start advocating for my son. And teaching him this process gave him the insight that he could cure himself. So what I want to say is that in the climate movement, we have results we'd like to see, but if we get too attached to those results, they will be difficult to accomplish. So one solution that I've been thinking about is based on the work of Jacques Fresco, who is 100 years old as of March 13th, and still working strong on the Venus Project. And his idea is a resource-based economy in which people have access to natural resources close at hand and have self-sustaining communities that are built around a circular architecture with civic center in the middle and entertainment on the next rung of the circle, and then housing and gardens all over the place, parks everywhere. Transportation is modern and speedy through rails and electric cars and flying cars and things like that. And his vision is really interesting. So if we begin to focus on a positive future through things and concepts like the resource-based economy, we will have a much better opportunity to find solutions than to focus on who the bad guys are and why they are continuing to do what they do. So the process of mind stories can really help us to identify the kinds of resources that we want to support and identify the kinds of activities that may be beneficial for all of humanity, all of the animals and plants and minerals, and to make the world a better place for my grandchildren. Hopefully I'll have some to survive. Thank you very much, everybody.
Dear Ty, dear Mother Earth, dear friends, aho, we are all related. And this morning what I want to say is that we are all welcome here. Every one of us. All of us from our various walks of life, our paths, our traditions, our orientations. We are all welcome and we are all needed. And I'm so grateful that we're here this morning. I too want to start from a place of love and gratitude. And how is the sound? Loud. Thank you for telling me. So I feel like it's a miracle that we're here. In 2013, there was a retreat that I came to with my daughter and my granddaughter. And I was just so full of grief about what's happening in our world with our climate and the species going extinct. And I was a new grandmother. And so when the question and answer time opened up, I knew I had to jump up and ask Ty a question. So I sat here with Ty, and I poured my heart out to him about what was alive in me, what I was afraid about, what I was worried about, how I wanted to be full of love and not anger or fear. And so I asked him what to do, and he gave a long answer, a very beautiful, detailed answer, which I've watched several times on YouTube since, so I could, steep deeply in his answer. But what I really took away was, he said, like the Buddha did, he built a Sangha that would support him in his work. So go and build a Sangha that will support you in your love for the earth and will support in tending and holding the earth. And then he said, be a grandmother and love your grandchildren and have faith in the children of our planet. And so that's what I have been doing since. And I have realized that love really is the place to begin from. Love is the place to start from. And Ty talks about our only hope may be falling in love with the earth again. That's such a strong statement. Our only hope may be falling in love with the earth again. And there are other teachers saying similar things now. Charles Eisenstein, who is a visionary in the climate movement, he talks about we must change the old story. There's a new story that is emerging. And so that new story is based in love and gratitude. It's no longer based in conquering. And even in the climate movement, we have to be careful of trying to conquer and using the same energy of the old story. So what is the new story? It's based in love and gratitude. And so a little bit about me. When I was a young woman, Gloria Steinem and the feminist movement was really coming on strong. And Robert Kennedy Jr. deeply affected me. I was very much touched by this man, and also Martin Luther King Jr. So the seeds of activism were in me from the time I was a young person. And what I watched in those movements is that change happened. It didn't necessarily come easily, but change did happen. And it came through the people. It came through grassroots movements. It came through people showing up and doing peace walks and saying, this needs to change. And so I think about that for now in the climate movement, what we're facing, this crisis right now on the planet, is that the power to change is coming through grassroots movements once again. There's a teaching about something called a bifurcation point, and it's when enough momentum has built, enough energy has grown, that a change happens. And can you feel it, friends? You feel that we are in such a changed time, and we don't know yet what's going to happen. And for me, what's important to remember about that, as Jerome mentioned, is that we don't know. We don't know. The predictions are dire. We're told there are some things we can do to address this climate crisis, and there are those of us who are. And we need more. And we need more of us to come from a place of love in wanting to address the time that we're living in. So what I want to remember is that while I don't know what the future holds, I can do and be what is mine to do and be in the present moment. Only I know what that is. Only you know what that is for you. And that I can do that regardless of what's going to happen, because it's the right thing for me to do. So that's one of the things I consider. We're in this time of a crisis/opportunity. Our consciousness is evolving. Perhaps as a species, we're evolving. There's great possibility in this time. It isn't a time of all dire news. There's also a lot of hope. It's not either or. It's both and. If we look deeply into this, and those of us that have come today and been here for this retreat, it's because we love life. We love the earth. We care. Our hearts and our minds are open. And so we're going to feel the pain of that, knowing that there's a lot happening right now that's painful. And we can at the same time love the beauty and be so grateful and really, really rest in that place and take refuge in the earth and in her beauty. So for myself, some of the ways that I address the climate crisis is through direct action. So I am an activist, I am a warrior. And I have to be careful about how the warrior comes out, because who I hang out with in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of activists with a lot of fire and a lot of passion. We're in an area what's called the thin green line. And where we are, as a lot of fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, are coming through our port on the river to be put onto barges, to be taken to Asia, to be burned. And so we are a prime location. And they're just coming left and right. One of the largest oil terminals in North America has been proposed in our port. And so the activists in our area are very strong. And we're showing up. We show up, we take our bodies, we show up. We say, we don't want this here. We can't have this. And it's making a difference. Friends, it makes a difference to show up. To take our bodies and to show up. It may not be for all of us. For some of us, it may be that we need to sit more and hold that space. But could both things be true? Could we have the use of our bodies and the use of the practice in sitting still enough? So one of the actions that I so loved being involved with was the People's Climate March. And some of us didn't go to New York City, but we wanted to hold one in Portland, Oregon. So we put it together, and 5,000 people came on the waterfront of our beautiful Willamette River as the backdrop. And I've come to be known as the lady with the bell in the climate movement in our area because, I think it's okay. I'm going to ask, can I bring a bell? Can I invite the bell, and could I ask people to breathe? And so I'm standing at the microphone, the platform. I look out over these 5,000 people, lots of noise. I mean, it's chaos. And this park is filled with so much energy. And so I go, all right, we're going to find our breath for a few minutes here. And if you want, you can close your eyes. I'm going to invite this bell. And it got silent. I looked out. People's eyes were closed. They were breathing. The bell was singing. It was profound. And it was less than 5 minutes, So that kind of thing really matters. And so I encourage you, if you are interested in direct action, don't be afraid to ask. Can I bring a bell? Could I invite the bell? And we don't have to make it weird, We can make it really kind of normal, just to breathe. We just want to breathe. That's all. It's always good to breathe. Who will argue with that? No one. The other thing I did for that, and I had to go to a lot of meetings, and I'm a heart person. And these meetings can be so heady, and lots of talking, lots of meetings. And so it was a lot to show up for in planning for this action. But it was so worth it. And I was able to invite, and I have some emotion here in this moment, my dear Native American teacher, Gloria Brooks, Spotted Earth Woman. She passed last week, and her memorial is today, and actually right now. And so I know how important it is
Just take a breath for a moment with me, would you? And my dear friend, Gloria Brooks, Spotted Earth Woman, Aho, thank you for your life. I know you're with us still. So I know it's important that we have diversity in the movement. And so I invited this dear one and helped make a platform for her to come and speak and sing traditional songs and to lead the march. So we can also do that. Make sure we're inviting everyone, people of color, different orientations. We're all needed and we're all wanted. And so I guess I'm not sure where I'm at with time, but why do I do this? Because I've taken bodhisattva vows. These are my ethics. This is what's called for now. This is a potent time, and I'm so happy to be alive for this. I don't know what the future holds for my grandchildren or the 7 generations to come, but I'm going to do my best to help create a new story, to help contribute to a life-sustaining civilization for all beings, for a viable future to be possible. And I say to you today that I'll do that from a place of love and of gratitude. So as we go forth, we are in this together. We are in this together. And a Native American saying, formal, beautiful saying, is Aho Matakuyasan. Aho Matakuyasan. We are all related.
My new friends. I just want to take a moment to maybe invite us to feel our seat, feel our feet, and notice the absolute physical truth of this moment, which is that we are all sitting here together on an incredibly huge, beautiful planet. Imagine yourself from space, looking down and seeing this body, sitting here in this room with these people, in this moment. So precious, so alive. So once again, my name is Kristin Barker, and I can't tell you how delighted I am to be here. This body, this heart, this mind is like really excited right now to be with you. It's a very precious community. And it's not written down in my notes, so I just want to say it before I forget it. That there is no suffering that this practice can't meet. That it can meet the smallest hurt that happens in this heart, the tiny moment of jealousy. Oh, there you are, jealous one. Let me hold you. Love wraps jealousy, asks, what do you need? And this practice can meet climate change. It can wrap climate change. And indeed, what One Earth Sangha, which is the organization that I co-founded with my dear partner, business partner, he's not my life partner, I can't say partner, Lou Leonard, it's founded on the principle that this Buddhist wisdom tradition has so much to offer humanity in this moment. And we ought to be getting the word out there, to be sharing these teachings, to be collecting our community and emboldening us to share what we do have to offer and what is needed. That is skillful means. So specifically, it can say a lot about how we got here. What is the origin of climate change? I forgot to start my timer. Hold, please. How we got here, how we can be with this. This tradition asks us to look at how did this arise? What were the causes and conditions that got us to this moment? And then how can we meet it fully, courageously? And then, having understood how it got here, open our hearts to the truth of it, how can we respond? Master Chu Men, when asked, what is the Buddha's life about? He said the whole of the Buddha's life is appropriate response. So what is the appropriate response to climate change? So as love envelops climate change, it listens. And climate change is a very good teacher, maybe a strong teacher. It asks us to turn towards a difficult truth. I'm so honored to be here because I feel like I'm in the presence of Thich Nhat Hanh in this community. And he has done so much in speaking to this issue. And even the teachings that are maybe so far away from climate change in particular have so much to say about this. In particular, this idea that the next Buddha may be a Sangha. And if that is so, how will that happen? In the same way that the individual becomes a Buddha, by turning towards and confronting and embracing and moving through suffering with skillful means to understand its gifts for awakening, so it will be for us at the collective level. If the next Buddha is a Sangha, then that Sangha must turn towards suffering. And that's what this community has the opportunity and is already doing. The wisdom tradition asks us to look at, where does happiness come from? Is happiness what I get when I get what I want? Or is happiness something deeper, this durable, resilient well-being that we can call happiness? Is when we are connected with each other, when we feel our belonging, when we're valued, understood, supported, even in the midst of our suffering. We can feel that sense of well-being. One of the beautiful lectures that we had here this past weekend was from Brother Phap Ho on understanding what was mentioned before, the understanding of the three roots or the three poisons, being greed, hatred, and delusion. And climate change is showing us the ways in which those can take on institutional form. It's a lens I invite you to practice with, to see greed, hatred, and delusion in our systems. So in greed, the corporate focus on profit at the cost of people and planet. The consumerism. Dr. King said that what are the three problems? Racism, militarism, and consumerism. 1967, I think he said that. So consumerism taking on institutional form. Hatred, look no further than our militarism, the way that we respond to conflict, the way that we respond to challenge institutionally. Our prison industrial complex, the way that racism is really undermining the institution of public safety. And then for delusion, our mass media is not doing a good job of telling us what we need to be talking about. And in fact, they're somehow supporting those other two delusions. So this is our task, to have the lens and to be able to see it and name it, and to understand the ways that we practice with the three poisons internally is how we can practice with them externally, to discern them and to meet them with courage, wisdom, compassion. And not to make other, because we can in our movements, in our social justice movements, in our climate movements, we can make other. And that is the beginning of harm. As soon as I say, me over here, you over there. Me over here, tree over there. Mountaintop over there, me over here. As soon as self, other, we have the central device in place that enables exploitation. It enables use and abuse. And in fact, if that's the fullness of that, is that it comes round, that this heart is injured when a mountaintop is removed. That this heart divides against itself when young black men are incarcerated simply because they are suspected of being dangerous. So as we practice internally, interpersonally, and collectively with these, and bring discernment, wisdom, and compassion to them, we can help unwind this samsara, this cycle of suffering. Again, I want to come back to another piece, which is all of us. All of us. I can't speak for all of us. So many of us who are working on this issue across traditions will cite Thich Nhat Hanh in his articulation of interbeing. And it is such a profound teaching that does ring like a bell in my life. I recently found out that there are more non-human cells inside this skin than there are human cells, all the microorganisms. So what is it that's going on here? Who's talking to you? Whose voice is this? Not me, not mine. There sits the banana. I love to do meeting meditation as, contemplation of inner being, right? There sits the banana. Peel the banana, watch it come closer and closer and closer. Okay, at what point does the banana stop being the banana out there and start to become the Kristen phenomena that's going on here? Right? There's a lot of, it's hard to tell. I'm speaking to you with my out-breaths. All of us here are in direct relationship with trees. With every breath we take and every move we make. I can still do that. That's not going to last. Pretty soon people will forget about Sting, and I won't be able to do that. I'll be watching you. So that understanding helps make us humble. And it is the right order that we should be humble and understanding that we are the earth. We are in this deep, deep, thorough relationship with Mother Earth. And that this heart divides against itself when we dishonor this bountiful, naturally generous, infinitely generous earth. Thanks for that. Got that. Yeah, it is incredibly diverse. And we love its diversity, and we ought to love the diversity within ourselves and also understand it as a unified whole. So climate change is this fantastic teacher, and I'll submit that the sickness is medicine. This is a Zen saying, the sickness is medicine. It shows us exactly what we need to understand. So 2 messages I want to leave you with. 1, you are not alone. If this issue disturbs you, frightens you, angers you, activates you, that's information because you're the earth and you're saying there's a problem. You're part of the earth's immune system saying there's a problem. Look. So you're not alone. And we're here for you. The Sangha is here. And you matter. Your actions matter. Join with others. And I'm looking at that bell, and I'm thinking about how that bell is configured to radiate out a gorgeous sound when invited to do so. And this Sangha is configured to radiate out a gorgeous sound of mindfulness. And this is our moment. This is our moment, and the invitation is to wake up and be present to what is. Sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to save them all. It is an impossible task. And that's what makes it great. It points us in the right direction. So let that be our individual and our collective task. Thank you so much for welcoming me.
So dear teacher, the community, I'd like to share a couple of teachings I got from nature in this valley. And one relates to an animal and one relates to a plant. And the first story I would like to share about is an encounter with a rattlesnake last summer. And don't worry too much, I look healthy enough, right? Okay, good. And so last summer I was coming out of the Venerables tea room at the Solidity Hamlet, and together with Tai Mantue I spent an hour and a half interviewing Austin and Duc. They're now brothers Minh Hoa and Minh Nguyen. And there was a lot of joy, a lot of love in my heart as I was leaving the room. And I was leaving the room, I also turned to Brother Mantue and we had a last exchange. I put on my right foot and my right shoe and the left foot in the left shoe, and I got a surprise. A young rattlesnake had a plan to make my shoe as resting or hunting grounds for the night. And so in that moment I was bit by one fang, and so what I learned, one other thing I learned in that moment is like just in the moment, all my plans for the next at least several days or weeks, so it's like, okay, it's all up in the air, it's like, okay. You don't plan for the future anymore somehow, you know? You just deal with the present, like, really? And at first it was like a wrong perception and a little bit of denial. It can't be a rattlesnake, just one sting. It's like it must be insect or something. I shake out my shoe and there's a rattlesnake there. And I still say, no, it cannot be. And it didn't hurt much either. Maybe just like a wasp sting or something. So, the wrong perception stayed for a while. But so in that moment, what I learned is like, okay, I have to let go of everything. But also to embrace and to handle that situation, to have a community around. So within 15 minutes, I'm sitting in the car with 2 brothers taking me down to the hospital. And within an hour, I have the first antivenom being pumped in my system. So that is like the support of the people around to help in that process of facing the present moment and the challenge in the present moment. But what I could also see when I had to kind of let go of my plans for the next couple of days is also seeing like I had this view, this idea that I will have as much energy or more going forward. My capacity will be as much or more going forward. And I realized that's actually like the same basis of an expansion kind of economy of like growing and growing and growing indefinitely. But this is not realistic in our human life. If we look at being birthed and growing up and maturing and being an adult and aging and facing health challenges and so on, it's not realistic. And also on a planet, on one planet, it's also not realistic, right? Keep growing and growing and growing. It's not realistic. So it's really given me a chance to face that inside of me. What is the inner sustainability or lack of it? How am I pushing myself? And how do I feel pushed by conditions to having to do more or do this or do that? So it's kind of a learning process and a continual one. And so first of all, like, where do I really need to put my attention? And so for me, that is what the climate change and the information I learned about the last several years too is also really holding up a mirror. So you cannot just live the old story of what your parents lived and what they spend their time, energy doing. No, you cannot. You know too much and you know the situation is not the same. So you have to change your way of interacting in the world and your way of living your life. Otherwise, it's not appropriate. You won't be happy. If we're not in line with cause and condition, we don't address them appropriately, we cannot be happy. We can hide. Right? We can try to run away. But we cannot be happy. So that takes us back to I have arrived, I'm home. So how can we cultivate that to deal with the rattlesnakes on our path? Or deal with the bigger issues that are not visible in our day-to-day life? That is kind of the trick here. Or like an added challenge. Because for most of us, climate change is out there. For many indigenous communities, for many minorities and people of color communities, the refineries are in their backyards, the pipelines going through their territories, and so on. So but for some of us, we don't see it on a day-to-day basis. Our trash is removed, we don't have smog every day at least. So things like that to remember, and that's where the diligence come in, to remember and to keep it alive in us in a way that is encouraging our bodhicitta. We don't forget. Because it's designed for us not to see the suffering. It's designed for us to not knowing what is going on in factory farms. We don't know what is going on in the factories that are producing our nice, shiny things. So the first thing Thai told us when he was here in 2006, he had the monastic sit down and he shared about how can we live more simply and how can we really fall in love with the earth and protect the earth. And first I say we have to learn to consume less. So that also is kind of the antidote of this expansionistic view. But to be happy with what we have already. So cultivate the gratitude for what is already being offered us. And here we have so much to learn. I remember from indigenous cultures that continue to have that as the core of their living on this planet. So who knows? Is it a good thing I got bit by the rattlesnake or not a good thing? Yeah. So there's other kind of lessons I got from that encounter. So that's the animal world, saying hello. And I also want to share a story about a relationship with a plant. And this is kind of a secret between all of us. Like after the retreat ends and we have lazy days here, and I'm walking around, I feel I can talk with the plants again. Because when all the people are here, it gets a bit noisier, so it's difficult to really see and really hear the plants around. So when you go home, you might also kind of take an opportunity on the mountain. Today I felt like I was in communion with the mountain and the plants. But to learn to relate to the plants and animals in our surrounding. And so a while ago, I was doing a lot of qigong under the Torii pines in the circular garden. There's a little hill just in front of the Torii pine, and whether it's just standing or doing movements, I can feel like it's kind of a teacher, an elder, and regularly I would hug it and feel like it's grandpa. It's so spacious, it's so gentle, but also so massive and so strong. And one day as I was standing in front of the Torii pine, the thought came to me, I see this as such a powerful being, a living creature, but at the same time as a human being, so small. We have a chainsaw in the tool shed. I know how to use a chainsaw, and I could take the tree down in a matter of minutes. So what kind of power do we have in our hands, in our minds as human beings? And what kind of responsibility do we train to go together with that strength and power? When I saw the Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore, he showed like the spade of his youth is just a shovel, a spade, right? And then now the shovel of modern day, and there's a huge bobcat can move like hundreds of pounds of material like in a... So with that, how are we cultivating our responsibility, our sense of ethics? So to prepare for this day, I printed some contribution to a global ethic and spirituality, and obviously in our tradition we had the 5 mindfulness trainings. I also feel it's wonderful to have a transmission of in a little bit. And I also printed the Manifesto 2000, that a group of Nobel laureates, and Thai was also involved in that, to celebrate a decade of peace and nonviolence, sponsored by UNESCO. And it's also the vows of active hope, Joanna Macy's work. And there's also the Eco-Sattva vows that also builds on them there, so you might want to, have a closer look. But so with that capacity we have as human beings in this modern age, so much we've evolved into and so much we discovered, and we tried things out, not knowing where they will take us. But now we know where they are taking us, so we need to be flexible enough to let go and to adjust our direction. Just like in our practice, if we climb to the 4th rung on the ladder and we think that's the highest, that's the best, that's the way it's always going to be, we cannot continue to develop. We cannot continue to grow into more happiness, more peace, more compassion and understanding. So the same as a species, we could see it as the greatest peril we ever faced, or we can see it as the greatest opportunity to take a leap. When things are easy and comfortable, it's rare that we take a leap. And so I like the wording of can see it as the great turning if we invest our minds and hearts into falling in love with the earth, into coming together, and to offering a way out through the way we live our lives. And also saying stop where there is need to. The great turning can happen rather than the great unraveling if we just leave things as they are and just continue. We know it's going to crash. No one is prepared for it. So even if we're just training ourselves to be more generous, to be able to live more simply and share what we have with more people, then we'll already mitigate and reduce suffering today, tomorrow, and in the future. Everything will not be fine and we'll live happily ever after in the fairy tale scenario. We know that's not true anyway, right? So that's kind of another view that we might have. So what are the views we hold about ourselves, and about our lives, and about our relationship with each other and the planet? And so only when we can see them face to face do we have a chance to transform them and to evolve with them into something more beautiful, into something more precious. And so thank you for being here and being part of that and contributing to that energy here today. So dear friends, we have maybe 10 minutes or so for one or a couple of questions. If there's a question in your heart that you feel is burning concerning the happiness and suffering in your lives and the life of many others, a question you think can benefit many people that are here for the retreat, please come up and have a seat next to us. Maybe we can have the second handheld microphone. We have a loss of charge here. And so if you have a question, please come up.
Dear brothers, dear sisters, thank you for this opportunity. I'm really grateful that I was able to be here this weekend for the Earth Holders Retreat. And my question is really do reflection about my suffering, as this mentioned during the panel, our history with activism, with Dr. King, and whether it was economics or racial justice, the environment. Sometimes I feel really desperate because I look back at the past few decades and here we are again, dealing with the same struggles. And there's when I think of being in this midst of the 6th largest extinction, and our brother and sister animals that have no voice, and you know, when the racial justice issues comes up, I think, why not think of, species justice? Because there's a quote by Dr. King that says something about, in the end, it's not the injuries of our enemies that we will remember, but it will be the silence of our friends. And I think that, I see a silver lining because looking back, the tobacco industry was finally exposed. Now the oil industry is being exposed, and it'll finally get its day in court. I'm hoping that the meat and dairy industry will be next at being exposed. And but I feel that, just in the next 10, 15 years, it will be like it's already too late. And so I'm here because that's all I know how to do, is to continue showing up. And I got strength from being around other people who care as much as I do. But there are times when this suffering is really debilitating. And so I guess it was the right thing to do, to show up. And I will continue practicing in Sangha. But some days it's just really, really bleak. And anyways, just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I remember the day I first heard the expression earthling. I was very happy. The Buddha in the Diamond Sutra asked us to look into 4 notions about who we are. And recognizing that we're not a separate self, we're not a person, we're not a living being, and we're not caught in a lifespan. And so looking at this situation and recognizing that we're earthlings, not just human beings, but also the animals, the plant life, the mineral worlds also has the earth as its home. And so how can we live together? And so for me, the first training of practicing reverence for life, grow our compassion for life, and that everyone and everything that is alive want to thrive. Not just sustain or just to survive, but to thrive, to live and to really bloom. And so if we ever, walked around the pasture and we see a cow and we look into the cow's eyes, we know it's an intelligent being. My parents had chickens for a while, and the chicken were walking around the yard. We know they're intelligent beings. They have a social relationship with each other, and so on. And so on, and we can see that the plants also want to live. And a Sister Susan, she led a children's group of getting to know the plant, and she said, okay, you tug them, just gently, tug the plant, and seeing it's kind of stay in the ground, right? Yeah, it doesn't want to come out of the ground. So even getting a carrot out, there's some suffering involved. But for me, the suffering I recognize when I pull up a carrot towards, even as a child, the only, actual animal I killed myself was a fish fishing with my grandfather. The fish really wanted to live, it's very clear. So even between the carrot and the fish, in growing my compassion, I can see, I relate more with the fish's situation and desperation than the carrot. And so how can we come back to touch our compassion and touch, yes, we want to create conditions for people, animals, plants, and minerals to live and thrive. And then there's what we have developed as the current meat and dairy industry that is very far away from what we might have seen or grown up with some cows in the barn roaming freely and so on. So how can we see that? And also to see that our ancestors have handed these cultures and these traditions and these dishes down to us, and we've grown up with eating. Until I was 29, you can't imagine how much meat and dairy and eggs and fish I've eaten. So actually I think that motivates me too, of wanting to eat plant-based and celebrating that. And to bring up the suffering of animals and how we raise animals for food, but in a way that we don't feel put down, we don't feel like we've done something bad, but we can grow into something. And how can we reduce our consumption? How can we shift our consumption to lessen suffering? So the food contemplations, how can we eat in such a way as to keep our compassion alive and to reduce the suffering of living beings, to help reduce the process of global warming and to preserve our precious planet. And so it's easy that we get dogmatic and caught in a view that, okay, we have to do this. If we really believe in something, we really see the preciousness of something, it's easy to feel we have to do this, and if you don't eat 100% plant-based diet, it's not good. And that is the dualistic view that we come into so much. So how can we become more aware of the suffering of animals? How can we be more aware of the suffering and the climate change caused by the way we produce animal products, in a way that we choosing freely to go in a certain direction, and also knowing is a transition for our body. So it's kind of a process. For me, when now there's a lot of talking about climate change as a moral issue, a part of me feel a little bit scared. The religious and the moral issue make me feel like I've done something wrong, I should do better, I'm in trouble. And so that's just me. So for me, that's lifting it up as an ethical issue. And how can we grow into life? How can we grow into cherishing and being grateful for life? And knowing where the thing we eat and consume come from. I don't think it's healthy to eat a being that had lived in those conditions, that a lot of the meat and the dairy comes from. I just don't think it's healthy for us to ingest it. And so also learning from the science that's out there about our physical health, about the suffering of animals, and about the impacts on climate change is important. Also, if we want to be intelligent beings, we should challenge ourselves to learn more. And knowing that it will challenge our worldviews, it will challenge our daily habits. So we cannot just continue like we're living now as a global community. I also not speaking just to everyone that's here, because I don't know what your lives look like. And so I kind of just want to acknowledge that ignorance. But like as a collective and as a society, we cannot just continue as we're living and thinking there will be a beautiful future for us. Yeah, because that is ignorance. And so I think it's a beautiful question. Thank you, Herb, for asking it. I think, yeah. And, I don't know if anyone else want to add something.
Really moving, and I'm so glad you spoke. And the only other thing that I just want to add is that the 4 people who sit in front of you today we all self-identify as white. And I heard you speak to the racial pain of here we are again, really? This is what's happening. And it's been happening. It's just now we're getting to see it. And racial oppression is a crafty beast. It finds ways to express itself, and we have to get really good at naming it. And it has found a way nobody says, yes, I'm a racist anymore. But our racism is unconscious. Our racial bias and the ways that too has become institutionalized. Poverty, education, the way the economy works have a racial bias to them, very strong. And it is people of color who will get hit first and worst by climate change. So this is very much how do we do not just a transition away from all these harmful industries, but how do we have a just transition? It's really, really important that we don't have this crisis create the opportunity for more oppression. I don't want to be a downer, but I wanted to name that.
So, Brother, I just want to thank you for your broken heart, and to say that there's nothing wrong with feeling the despair, because that means our love is deep. And so when that comes to the surface, it's because we love so deeply. And so I thank you for your broken heart and for expressing that to us. I want to tell you that I have a tattoo on my arm. It's of a turtle. It's a honu in Hawaii. It's called honu. And my husband Johnny and I have for decades been swimming with the turtle people there. And they're a metaphor for wisdom. They are a metaphor for living in the midst of our changing world. They are growing some tumors on them around their eyes, and there's research being done about why. Is it because of the sunscreen? Is it the pollution in the water? But here's what I know. When we're in the water with the honu, we keep our distance, we do what's recommended, and we're of service in helping the turtles when we're there. But when we're in the water, that turtle is so happy. It's gliding in the water, it's swimming, and it looks over, it's massive, and it looks over its shoulder at us, and it knows we're there, and we're just swimming, sharing the water, and it's very happy in the midst of a polluted ocean, in the midst of having some things that are going on with its skin. And so I think about that for us. That even while there is a difficulty and darkness happening, that we're in this beautiful environment, and our hearts can be broken and things can be going wrong, and we can still glide in the water like the turtle, and then look to other species to help address what it is that needs to be addressed. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
So thank you, dear friends, for being up here and for sharing. And thank you for all for being here for our day today. We can, thank you. So let's end our session with 3 sounds of the bell. Breathing in, I know I'm alive on this precious green and blue planet. Breathing out, I smile in gratitude to all life on this beautiful planet. Alive, smiling to all life.